Welcome to Flory Models, I'm Flory. Well, as you can see, vixen is all done. Now you're slightly behind on this one, okay, you're about 3 weeks behind actually, but I thought I'd show you because, you know, if you haven't got this kit, I know there are some real bargains at the moment on the internet for this particular kit, and it is well worth having it. Forgetting the bits that I did to the cockpit, straight out of the box, this makes an absolute stunning build. It goes together so very, very well, and I have to say, Airfix have done it again, and they've put together a fantastic kit that really does build itself. It is that good. And who thought we'd have been saying that 20 years ago? But needless to say, there's a little bit of a delay between me and you watching this one. So you're on part 6 of this one now, so you've got a couple of weeks to go through. But bear with it, because I do some different types of things with this one. We break up this grey, because technically this sea grey, it is a little bit boring, to say the least. So what we've actually done is a little bit of post shading to lighten it up, things like that. We've done some things with the harnesses as well. We've made them out of milliput, and then we've used pigments as well to really sort of break it up and go round it and turn it into a terrific looking model, as you can see now. So basically, if you haven't got this kit, go out and buy it now, and then you can watch me build it. It's the first one of the speed builds, and that said, we're still part 8. There's actually 8 parts going to be on this one, so you still don't miss a lot. But from my point of view, it was a lot easier to edit and film and put together, and hopefully you guys have seen a true sort of, you know, nice build off of it as well. You haven't missed out too much. The F15 as well is in editing and everything else. To be honest, it needs to be assembled. The wash has just come off of it. It needs final assembly, and then we're going to be doing things with pastels as well. A little bit of weathering technique to really sort of liven it up and make it look very nice. But needless to say, it is coming together really, really well. Okay, this week, been sent down a couple of new bits of airbrush from Iwata. Now, you might remember, well, you probably know, I'm quite a fan of these guys, the old Harder and Steenbeck series of airbrushes. I put them on a par with Iwata with the last time we reviewed one of these guys and everything else, but they are quite expensive, you know, there's no doubt about it. Airbrushing is not a cheap hobby by any stretch of the imagination. By the time you spend £100 on an airbrush, you spend £200 on a compressor, and if you want to, something like that, have an extractor, that's £280 back there as well. Paints, cleaning gear, all the rest of it, really you can kiss goodbye to the best part of £1,000. Yes, you can do it on a budget. But I have to say, 9 times out of 10, the guys that I get here who join me around this bench, which, you know, when I'm teaching airbrushes and stuff like that, have used those horrible things like the siphon feed Humbrol things and using an air can and things like that. And they are not airbrushing by any stretch of the imagination. It puts paint on a model, but that's all really you can do with it. Then you get the guys and they'll go out and they'll pay £20 for an airbrush. You know, really what do you expect for 20 quid? You wouldn't expect to drive a car for 20 quid, okay? So don't expect you're going to get a first class service out of an airbrush for £20. They are going to be unreliable. They're probably going to have cheap parts inside which aren't going to last you. To be honest, I've had both of these airbrushes now over 5 years, and I am still on full internals are exactly the same. You know, okay, I've replaced needles and I've replaced, you know, end colour cups, things like that, just the little things, but certainly main parts aside have never been changed. So well worth investment into these things. So when Iwata last time sent me down an airbrush and it had the new floating air cap in there and things like that, I was very, very impressed. And we've been speaking about airbrushing and the cost of it, and we were talking recently about bladder old ones. If you might remember, I can't even remember whose it was now, I think it was Revels or someone like that, but the thing used to cut out every 20 minutes because it used to get too hot. It used to push air, you could feel it blowing out and everything else like that. So really what we've got here is Iwata having a go at trying to entice new people into airbrushing, good quality equipment, but at not breaking the bank. Okay, so these two here, if I just check my prices, we've got the new Neo compressor here, which is £82, so not too bad, okay, 82 quid. Yes, you could go out and you could probably go on Fleabay and buy a cheap, nasty compressor for that money with an air tank, perhaps a 1 litre air tank, auto stop and start, but let's face it, I know lots of people have bought them and they've only lasted a matter of months. The auto stop and start's finished, it gets leaks, and then they just give up. You know, they're not designed for doing it. Compressors like airbrushes, they do get a lot of hours of use out of them. It's not something you sort of pick up and put down, especially from my point of view. I'm on the end of these things probably 16 hours a week. So, you know, they really do get a hard time. But certainly, you know, this is what we're talking. The money isn't too bad here. Now, this here is what we call the Neo, which is gravity but fed, you know, i.e. the paint comes from the top down the bottom. And I'm just checking to see, and this one retails at, I'm just checking, at a massive £41. So really is quite a bargain. I'll just make sure we're all correct on those things. Yes, it is. So really what we're talking here, for 150 quid, get yourself a couple other little bits and pieces, you're on the airbrushing thing. But are they any good? So let's have a quick look to see what we get. Okay, let's have a look at the bit I haven't seen before. Okay, this is their new Neo air compressor. Sorry, just trying to open it up nicely. Oh, it's all coming up. So what do we get in the box? If I just move the camera out a little bit up top. There we go. So as you can see, we have diagram of how to use it. We don't get any paperwork inside by the look of it. A quick, pretty much idiot-proof guide. It must be, I understand it. So we get a little plastic thing at the top. We've got power pack. We've got the system itself, which is in this plastic case. It seems to have some type of rubber coating on it. A little bit different. It's got little rubber feet, so that will neutralise vibrations, which is quite a nice touch. Okay, we've got this little guy, which I presume is an airbrush holder. So that clips in the side. We've got a air hose, which is not my favourite. I don't like rubber air hoses. I don't know. They tend to drive me a little bit mad. So you only get one end. So the other end is going to obviously poke onto here. So we just wet it a tiny bit just to make it slip on a little bit easier. So that pushes on to that end. Just undo this guy. Okay, I'm going to plug this little guy in. Okay, now the interesting thing on here, apparently it says here, attach air hose, working feeds, attach the airbrush holder, plug into power supply, check. We've done all of those things. Now we need an airbrush to go on. So I've got a quick release on here, so it should be the standard fitting to go onto the bottom here, which it is. It's handy. Okay, so we just have a look for this one. So we're going to turn on. Okay, is that quiet? I don't know, it's not too bad. It's not as loud as if I had my compressor on the desk, you would really hear it. It's got no loose bits to do, so really I don't think you're going to make that much quieter. You could probably stick a rubber band around it to hold it down a little bit, because it's the vibrations which are making the noise. Doesn't seem to matter where it stands. Okay, so air, you can probably hear. So obviously when I'm pushing, it picks up. You can feel a tiny bit of pushing. What's happening is, obviously there's a diaphragm in here and it's pushing the air through. So if you imagine like it's a remnant system, so you've got like a wave of air coming through. And whilst it's very fine, you can feel it. Okay? But that's quite a nice air pressure coming out there, and this is what we've got blue and purple on here, so apparently that's medium. So, no laughter at the back please. Okay, so here we are on high now, which is just blue. Quite nice air pressure. I don't know what this is supposed to be kicking out of. If I'm guessing, I'd say that's probably around about 25 psi. But I say that's only a guess. Okay, low rate, which I say is probably around about 5 to 10 psi. I say it's really hard to gauge on this. Okay, and we press again, and that turns off. Not too bad. Okay, 82 quid for this. Depends if you want to spend another 100 quid and have a compressor. If you don't want to spend another £100, then I would say that's quite nice. It's enough to do things. I don't think high air pressure, this is not going to push out neat extra acrylics, okay? But certainly I think it will work for most things. That's quite a nice air pressure coming out. Let me just turn him off a minute. So anyway, it says down here, to press trigger, obviously, Then we'll start on the airbrush, restart the compressor, turn off power. Okay, now it has got a cut off, which means when it does get hot, which obviously we don't know how long that is properly yet, but it does say after 10 minutes it will cut itself off. So i.e. before it melts, it will shut itself down. So I must admit, that's quite a nice little thing. The other thing we have to imagine here is if you are tight on space, a compressor, I should have got mine out really, but you've seen mine in other shows, it's huge, you know, I've got a big compressor down there. It does take up a lot of room, it is quite noisy. You know, if I just open up my cupboard here, and just blow some air through, so I'm shooting higher pressure. You see, that is in there and it's sat on carpet. I don't know, there's probably not much in it. I suppose if I put that in there, that would be the proper fair test, but that's a big compressor in there. But as I said, it seems to work very, very nicely. I've got no complaints about that. So anyway, that's our little thing there. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at the airbrush. Now this is really the exciting part for me. Now this is sealed, I haven't even been in here yet. So if we just have a look. Now, notoriously, obviously airbrushes, for quality, you do gonna pay a price, okay? And one of my criticisms on the last one that we had, which was the CS here, oops, I can get it out of the box that we had, is that the actual colour cut wasn't interchangeable. And obviously they built this one, so I can't get in it. There we go. Okay. So here we go now, we've got a nice bit of foam, not a lot in the way of instructions unless it's behind, and here we have the airbrush itself. So double action, usual thing as we know, we push down for air, we pull back for paint. Nice mechanism down the back there. We've got, down here at the back, we seem to have, you know, okay, you know, metal's metal at the end of the day, I know, but I'm just saying the quality you can feel is a cheaper quality to other airbrushes, shall we say. But let's face it, we are talking an airbrush here, £41, and we are going to have to take some type of shortcuts. It comes with a colour cup lid at the top, which is very nice, okay? As you know, I don't have them on mine, that's why I spill paint. The other thing that's very nice with this, it does have interchangeable colour cups. So this is 5mm versus, get it out here, down in here we've got a 2mm, which sits in, which I know some of you commented last time when I said about it, that I said that the CS one didn't have that, and it was a bit annoying because you couldn't clean up around it. I still stand by that, it's got edges. This one has not got it at all. It's exactly the same as the Harder and Steenbeck. The other thing as well, I wasn't just having a dig in general. I know a lot of you think I was, but I wasn't, because sometimes if you've got a smaller colour cup, for instance in here, I can get the airbrush into areas with no trouble. When it's got a big one on there, you can't get in there as well. That's really what I was getting on about. And in some cases as well, when I'm spraying, you've probably seen, I'll take the colour cut off altogether. That way you can put a tiniest amount of paint just in the end there, get right in where you want to go and spray with no trouble at all. That's what I meant by it. But as I said, it's nice you do get two colours. Again, I don't know how long they'll last, to be honest. I wouldn't have thought that long, but again, you know, they do have to make shortcuts somewhere. Now, I'm doing all of this without reading any of it. So the needle size that this comes as standard is, it's got the 0.35, which was the standard on the CS, which as we know is perfect for modelling. So if we just take the end cap off, so we've got the needle sat in there. Okay, we just whip the back off again. Okay, we'll just slip the needle out. There's our needle. Then we'll take the end off. Now again, we've got this system, quite unscrewed that, where we're going to have to physically remove the end of the needle in here. Just trying to see how you actually get the nozzle off the end, which is quite a thing. So what you have to do, this is one of those things, we'll have to drop the camera right in here. It doesn't have the floating nozzle on the end, and it is my only complaint with all Iwata airbrushes that don't have it. What we actually have here, this bit on the end, this tiny tiny little bit on the end here, okay, is the air cap. You have this tiniest little spanner that you have to put in and then unscrew it to get this bit out. Okay, now this bit here is the bit you're going to have to replace from time to time because they wear out on the end, alright? And that's the thing to it. So at some point you are physically going to have to come along, spend, I don't know how much they are, the replacement bits for this, but spend just a little bit of money just to get that bit out. But as I said, very nice apart from that. So I'm just looking down at the quality. This hole that you've got here, sorry all the movement on the camera, just that I've got one camera is working today and one that's not working particularly well. Okay, the hole down the bottom is where your air comes in. So basically it comes up from the bottom, travels along, and out that hole down the bottom, it picks up all your paint and by a vacuum process pulls it out, sticks it on the end of the needle, the air all gets a bit busy down there and it atomizes it. Okay, so we're just going to screw this bit back in. But as I said, these is why I don't like Iwatas. Purely because many times in the past I've had one of these tools, got a little bit overzealous, over-tightened it, rounded it off, good night Vienna. But anyway, that all goes together like that. This sits on the end. Okay, I can feel all lubrication. The nozzle guard on these, okay, it's just literally a slim silver metal, okay, but it'll do the job, it'll stop your needle taking a whack. Okay, then your needle goes in the end and it pushes in very much like that. So don't overplay it, but it should all be nice and springy. Then you come back in here and it all goes in. Colour cup on the top, and then you take your Neo compressor, okay, and we are going to pop it in underneath, and then you're good to shoot and you're off to go now. So with the two and our rubber hose, we are all good to spray and do. Now for the moment I'm just doing this as an in-box review, but I have to say quality isn't there, but that's because of the price, as we know. But certainly from our point of view, the equipment that we've got on show here, this is now it's called the Neo for the Iwata, I don't know quite why, but it's the CN. Sorry, I have to turn that off. Okay, that's the other thing. With these, you need them running all the time. When you have a tank, obviously it charges itself, you don't have it running all the time. But as you said, just one of those things. But I have to say, you know, we are talking on a budget here. I remember in the old days, this guy here used to be the same money. This is the Evolution. It was the 2-in-1, which will be its stablemate. Now, sorry, there you go, cameras. So this really used to be the same money. The thing is now, this one here is £110, okay? And really it's almost the same type of thing. The only thing is, I would say the quality on this one is a little bit more, but as I said, you are paying another £30 for it. So, you know, obviously it's all personal choice of how much you want to spend on it. Personally, I think it's probably, if you're on a budget, I would go out and buy one of these. It does seem very nice. I think it'll do everything you'll want it to do. Spares readily available, obviously, through the Airbrush company and anywhere else. And it does seem to be all very nice. But obviously, the proof in the sort of pudding will be to put it to test on something big, shall we say, that we can actually make it, you know, see how it runs after 10 minutes, things like that. And it just so happens, I happen to have something here where we can test it on over the next few weeks. So if we just move these out of the way a minute, because it's quite big and does need a little bit of room. So hold on, let me just get it. And because I'm a big kid, we do have to just move this out of the way. So we have this. Yes, this is the plan. We just turned him off before he... There we go. This is the plan. This particular one we've got here, this little thing, is a metal Henlon RC tank, you know, you name it, it's all got it. It's all metal turreted and metal everything, metal tracks, which is all quite nice. But the thing is, it's come straight from the factory almost, and it's got what they call weathering on it. Personally, I think we can do a lot more. It's got on it lots of this stuff. This is for cabling and that, which obviously is just plastic. So what I intend to do to put our Neo Air on test is to completely respray and weather this, and obviously you'll see it on the new shows, and go through and see what we can do with it. So it will be quite a test for it, because it's quite a large lump for it to do, but I think it will work quite well. So not only can you see me weather this over the next few weeks, you can see how the Neo Air does it and compares, because I only use that airbrush for doing this one, and this one's obviously going to have a full spray job and everything else like that, and then it will go through. But I've been playing with a few little areas, like down here, this is how it is, and I've been playing with using metallizer paints on it to see how it will work and things like that, and I think it will come out absolutely lovely. So over the next few weeks you can see me use the Neo airbrush and the Neo compressor for redoing this one, and I'll show you lots of weathering techniques as well. Okay, so we spoke about last week, we were in the forum and we were having a look at all the bits and pieces around there. Now, the thing is, obviously we've got lots of new members coming in, so we're just going to recap over it. When you're taking part in the group builds and the SIGs, mainly the group build, shall we say, what we need you to do is actually do the full build for it. Because what's happened is, okay, that some of the guys have come along and you've literally put up a photo of the beginning of the box, one halfway through the build and one at the end. The idea with the group build is that everybody sees everybody else build. It just makes it that sort of more team orientated type thing. So guys can ask questions on it and things like that. Now, I'm not just trying to get out with sending probably over £1,000 worth of medals out for this particular build that we're doing, if everyone finishes. Okay, but all it is, it's just that some guys have said that, you know, everyone's missing the spirit of doing these group builds, because that's what it's all about. The guys, it's about you guys all coming together and doing it. So if you have got one of these builds, which basically just says, you know, here's the box and here's a picture of a cockpit and then here's the completed thing, really that's not what a group build is. A group build should actually be some nice shots of the box, perhaps the sprues before you start it. Then just work your way through the build, and we're not saying every time you do anything like I'm doing here, but literally every now and then take some photos. So perhaps, you know, let's just say you're doing the Tamiya Spitfire. Okay, so then let's take a photo of the cockpit, perhaps as you're doing it. Okay, and then that way what also will happen is guys who aren't as good or at advanced or have got questions, or you're using a technique perhaps for doing weathering or glass work or whatever, that don't know, can ask you how you did it. Then the idea is you come back and say, oh, that's quite easy, it's straightforward, I just did A, B, C. And then they, obviously those people can take that knowledge and move on and use it on their own builds, or perhaps they can do, you know, something else with it, or practice that particular build or refine it themselves. So that way everybody's sort of helping out each other, and that's the thing with the group builds. So then obviously just do perhaps cockpit area, perhaps a little bit on the painting stage, explain how you're painting it, how you're actually weathering it near the end if you're weathering, and then some final reveal shots. We're not asking for full detailed builds here, we're just asking for a little bit more that's on there. Now, we're not going to go around and start pulling people out the forum and saying, look, you need to do this, otherwise you can't enter. But perhaps if you have, you know, got a few shorter ones in, you've got the edit system on the site, just pop back, edit and add a little bit of text to it. Perhaps if you've got some more photos you did at the time but didn't put them up, add a few more photos and just pad it out, shall we say, just a little bit. Because otherwise you've got some guys who are taking the time to go through and show all the steps that they're doing, answering all the questions, you know, and then they get obviously the medal and the prizes at the end of it, versus another guy who comes along who literally just puts up 3 photos, takes the medal and just runs with it, you know, and that's it. And they are worth it. I've got one here somewhere that did that. Well done with the medal. You know, our medals are quite nice and everything else. He says he can't find a medal. Hold up there with me. Everybody who completes, edit that out, will get one of these. Now these medals are sent free of charge from myself out all around the world, doesn't matter where you are. They're nicely engraved, they've got our little centres in as well, and they're well worth taking part, okay? And all you've got to do is literally a build to get one. It is simple as that. But as I said, some guys are really sort of, you know, skirting it a little bit close for the type of work you're putting up there. But it said, pop back, pad it out a little bit description, everything else, and everybody's happy. So as I said, loads of great group builds going on at the moment. I'm on with the HH60, which is not a nice kit by any stretch of the imagination, and I should have built another helicopter and just gone straight through and made a lot more easier. But as I said, that will be up next week as well, so you can see that one. In the meantime, we've got the members meet here at Flory Models HQ on Sunday evening. We will be recording it, hopefully they won't mind, and we'll bring you highlights of that next week as well, so it should be a lot of fun with that. Then obviously F15 will be out the way for me, and then I can get straight on with the Wingnuts wing kit. No, I'm okay, I will do it, it will be fine. I'm not terrified about rigging, wood effects, cloth, tiny bits of photo etch. No, I probably am. That's why I'm doing 1/16 at the same time, because I can work on giant stuff like this and tiny little things, so it should balance it out. So until next week everybody, happy modelling and take care.